And welcome to the second, oh god, put this away, second video in today's series, and we're just going for it because we'll get these both started, and anyway we might have to wait for some spare parts to fix some things. But sorry, ladies and gentlemen, what we have here is Chris's other guitar for this week, and it's the 60s Les Paul. Is it a 60s Les Paul? I'm not entirely sure. Not a Les Paul, it's an SG, you know what I mean. 60s, that's what I'm trying to find out. It's a USA built Gibson anyway, and it's got a lovely sort of TV yellowy colour which has absorbed or gone in a different colour thanks to contact with the leather strap somewhere in the past where it's been played, and it's got a non sort of standard, or not like copies, the modern copies, shaped electric cavity. It's obviously different, but it's very recognisable as a classic Les Paul. Now this one, I keep saying Les Paul, SG. This one has some cracking on the binding, and we were kind of discussing this the other day when Chris brought it. Now you can't see close-ups on here, but I kind of worked out in my head that what's happening here is that the frets come right to the end and press against this binding, including the nibs bit, which includes the nibs bit. And then what happens is, over the years, the wood shrinks, the neck shrinks, and the frets don't, but the binding goes in with the wood, but gets caught on the edges of the frets, and so it breaks. These bits will eventually be left attached to the frets with all the binding in between broken off. It's quite an interesting little detective story. Somebody's fitted a tusk nut, and they've left the action of the first fret about 1 millimetre, possibly a little bit more. We'll check in a minute. But it's a lovely looking old thing. It's got some corrosion here that is actually building up, like encrusted with copper corrosion. So I think it's not really appropriate to be looking to make these things shine, but I do think we probably ought to take that corrosion off there because it's looking really furry and horrible. One of the things I noticed, I mean it's really corroded up this end too, but I noticed that these tuners are falling apart, the Gibson De Luxe tuners, and actually just pressing one of these changed the tuning, so they're actually coming apart. So I might want to have a closer look at those, see if I can just perhaps reset the little clasps that hold them together. But again, playing the game of ultra caution, I don't want to be doing any bending of metal if there's the slightest chance that they snap and break off, because then I'm stuck without any lug to hold the tuner in place. So, but right now they are very definitely sort of coming apart, and see, not good at all. Never really had the chance to do that before. Oh, they're all doing that. So this really does need looking into. Weirdest thing ever. Meanwhile, we have an SG. How is it balanced, ladies and gentlemen, I hear you ask? Well, of course it's an SG. It's going to be perfectly balanced. It's not that thin of a body, not that big of a deal, not that thin of a body. But one of the other things I noticed about this is how it's strung. The top 3 strings are back to front, which caught me momentarily by surprise as I was trying to tune it up. Quite a nice sound. Oh, the jack socket is loose, so I've got to try and put that right as well. Here we have an initial quick take on the sound. Oof. That is just not going to stay in tune. I'm not going to bother. There's no point. These tuners are actually broken, and I don't even want to touch them again before I've managed to get the load off, the string loading off. Now this is a slight problem because we're going to have to do things in a different order now. In fact, I'm going to get rid of this red thing because I just know it doesn't work. Bin. This is a bit long, straggly and whatever, but it's better than one that doesn't work properly. Anyway, so yeah, looking at this, well, there's some obvious things about this. There's cleaning up. There is obviously the tuners. There's obviously the jack socket loose. The nut possibly, hopefully we'll keep it because it's so high that actually we should be able to make the adjustments we need. And do it all with the original nut, which is, because it's tusk as well, it might, well, not original, but the tusk nut, then it's good because we won't have to lose it. So my feeling on this one, I'm having sort of briefly played it indoors, sounded good, quite enjoyed the feel of playing it. It's got what's it, strap locks, you know, Schaller strap lock thingies on it. Yeah, it's nice. It's got, you know, a bound edged SG is a nice thing anyway. Yeah, needs cleaning up. See if we can remove some of this crap. I'm sure we can. I originally was saying to Chris that I didn't want to end up with shiny things, but I'm not really sure you can actually get some of this goo off without ending up cleaning it up, so we may have to go the shiny route. It's not so bad for the pickups. I don't think we'll ever really get these cleaned up. They are proper old. But anyway, so the concern I've got straight away is that although we might still need to do fret leveling, we don't even know yet, because we've yet to adjust the action, we've yet to adjust the I'm just wondering, I'm really nervous to tune these up at all. Let's if I can do it. Okay, that's on. Backwards. If we can sort of go from here, then we could just get the action bit done first as the normal sequence of events. Now this has got an absolute ton of neck relief to it, which for an SG isn't required. So I'm going to start the game by removing the truss rod cover and making adjustment to the truss rod. So there's a load of relief in there which we don't need. An SG typically will play low and far. Oh, why? Look, there goes the cover. Little things broken. Little things you don't know until you see them. And there's another screw in there. Oh, that's the one that fell in here, right? Okay, let's try and get this out. So that's broken, Chris. It was broken before, it's just fallen apart upon removal of the screw. So it's that thing, they've put it in there and done it up and you don't notice. Now I should be able to resin that together again. Now I'm going to make an attempt to adjust the neck relief. I'm just going to look at it right now from the center. Okay, so we've got a bit of a snaking going on, and we have very pronounced curve, comes up, flattens out at the usual sort of culprit place. Okay, so I'm going to have a go at tightening this up, if it will behave. We get rid of some of the curvature in here. Ooh, it feels, man, that's actually fighting back. That doesn't feel good at all. Yeah. Okay. I have a feeling, let's just see if this actually goes the other way, even. My concern is that this is actually seized. I think you might be seized. God, that is one hell of a curve. Okay, I'm going to pause. I hate this. Nothing's ever simple, is it? I think that truss rod is possibly seized. I could apply a little bit of WD-40 into the well, if it's seized in the adjuster part, then maybe a little bit of WD-40 might just help. Quite honestly, I wouldn't be too sure. But let's get a stand so we put it upright. We'll give it a go, and then we will have to go and have a little think and a pause. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover that up there for a second while I apply that. Get in there. vaporized. Thank you, that's better. Thank you. And then to lose the remaining stuff, out you go. I can't believe that somebody wired this up back to front. Literally, oh, that string, and the strings are stuck in the holes, in the slots. Gadzooks, not nice. Right, going to stand that up for a little while, and I'm going to leave that do as much as it can, and I'm going to come back to it in a little while, but we really need to pause. Let's just get that sitting down there comfortably. Right, pause it for a bit. I don't have a good feeling about this one, Chris. You know, when the first thing that starts out is your what's it breaks off. It's I start to think that the person who sold this may have been fully aware of its limitations, that kind of seller. I could be wrong, of course, because I don't know them and whatever. So first stage, as I'm going to have a go at just putting a little tiny bit of hang on, let's hold that off. I'm going to do a little tiny bit of a fix here, but see, that's breaking off as well, that. But we can glue that together. What I'm going to do is I'm also going to get a little bit of copper shimming stuff, which funnily enough makes actually quite a good little backing plate when you're trying to stick things like this together. So you can kind of put it in there like that, and it hardly adds much to the thickness of this. So we could go down there. Well, it would help if it wasn't crimped in the middle, but let's say we take a piece like this, and we can cut down there like that, and we can choose a bit to go to there like that. We could, if you wanted to, go all the way down so it has a sort of, sits a consistent height above the thing. Not necessary, but it probably almost makes more sense to go all the way down to about there. So I'll do that. So what I'll then do is I'll get me up some nice goo. Thank you, goo. Okay, where's the end piece? Thank you very much. These things, I'm getting a bit fed up with these dispensers. They actually don't seem to work very well. Not these cheap ones anyway. Take that down there. So we're going to make up some of this. Problem is with these little broken bits of plastic is if you just try and stick them back on with super glue, they just will not stay in place. So we have to do a little bit more inventive than that. So something like this. I'm going to go all the way down to there. Actually, that is a bit lumpy for some reason. I don't know why. And then we go like this. Like this and like that. That's very groovy. So then we take off the excess if we can. Well, I don't worry too much about it, but I'd like to take the excess off if I can keep it in one place, like that, and then like that, and then flip it over, and then we get our little missing bit and we drop it. Sorry, it's not very good visual, this. We drop it, if we can even pick it up, place it on there, and we waltz it into position. problems are. And get it into there. Now this approach will join that back up there and give us a fix, but it will also give us a backing for everything else to sit on. If I can just keep it straight without it going, oh look, that's terrible. It's wandering off. I'm getting it everywhere as well, so okay, that will do. So what we could do is move that, put that on there like that, and technically probably squish it down with something, because what I'm going to do afterwards is I will eventually just cut round that and remove this excess, remove the excess, what's the stuff, copper is the word I'm looking for, so we don't want it sticking out. There you go, that's my little temporary fix. I'm going to put that up here to harden. It probably actually would suit being clamped lightly together just to make sure it stays flat. So let's do that. 2 bits of wood, please. 2 bits of wood. We don't exactly want it to stick to, I'm going to put a bit of paper down so it doesn't actually stick to the wood. At least if it sticks to paper, then we can at least stand some chance of getting it off. There you go. Put that on there like that, that on there like that, that on there like that. This like this. This is as good as I can see it. So I'll stick that over there out of the way, tidy up this. Right, so that's a sort of a little pause. Definitely worried about that truss rod. If I hate to sound suspicious, but you know, if it's kind of come with a knackered truss rod, then it's not really got that much, too much value, and it is a, I mean, I wondered why straight off that it had that much relief curve, because, you know, as I say, an SG typically wouldn't have that. Those necks are beautifully flexible and they're perfect for playing with a very flat profile. So has me a little bit concerned. Let's have another feel while we're at it. Followed by, probably go and have a little bit of research time. So I really would like to, oh no, I'd like to be able to turn it both ways, one way or another. I mean, it's not unknown for a truss rod that doesn't want to turn to just give up the ghost. This is feeling mighty spongy. It's turning, but it's got this kind of spring back to it that's sort of fighting back. Makes me wonder what exactly is turning and what isn't, if if you get what I mean. Let's just trying to come back. No, I'm not very happy with that. I'm going to go and do some research and I'm going to come back. But I think I have a horrible feeling. I mean, it doesn't look massively corroded. It's not like it's got tons of water damage on it, but that doesn't feel like it wants to adjust, and we've got a pretty horrendous amount of, I mean, I think that's got to be, you know, my god, that's about 2 millimeters nearly. I'll just do a measurement if I can, because it's kind of important what this actually is. You know, the old detective sense would love to know how this was sold, because I know it's a recent acquisition. We have 60, 30, 60, 30 plus 40, that's 130. Okay, it's not quite that, but it's not far off. Let's drop the 30, let's go 60 and 40, go 1 mil. I mean, even a millimetre is way too much. Hard to see. I would say that's about, oh, we're on 1640, that's 1. I'd say it's about 80.8, or let's go, what are we, 40 and 60, let's go 40 and, where on earth is 30 gone now? Let's go 40 and 30, that's 70, and let's go an extra one, 80. Thin one always gets stuck. Kind of knackered, really. What did we say? 80. Yep, I'd say 80 is a good start point, and then down this end here, I would say we've got at least that again. I'd say there's a millimetre at the top end, and 0.8 of relief, which is way high. So nut, first fret is 1 mil, which is way high. Relief is 0.8, which is way high. And then as we're starting out with playing action down here of just over 1 point. Actually, no, you know what? It's 1.5, which isn't bad, but way high on the other side as well. So 2.1 on the high E. High E, last fret 2.1, low E, last fret 1.5. So that's off. If we were to reduce this, actually for once a bridge that's easy to adjust. Amazing, a Gibson bridge that's easy to adjust. So we go down to kind of what an SG typically would comfortably wear, which is 1.3 easily. got a plateau here, which it doesn't like a low action, that's for sure. We've got broken tuners, we've got possibly a seized truss rod, we've got corrosion everywhere. Let's while I can't really do much more, let's have a quick look in the back of the business. Trying to think where is the thing you can travel with me. Yes, the portableized camera thing. Hold on a minute. You come this way, you come this way, you come around here, you'll come around here, you come around here, and you go there. There we go. You can be party to the grand opening. Let's see what's in here. It's funny to find something that has a cover with the original plastic on it. I wonder if it's actually been like that all these years, or this is a replacement of some sort. Hard to imagine that it would have stayed on. But then again, you never know, this may have just been put up in an, oh my lord, put up in an attic. Look at the dust in there. Wow, that really is Vincent Price territory. I mean, quite nicely done, all told and all said and done. Too much movement in this socket here, and whether I'm going to have any chance to put that right or not. It's anyone's guess. So yeah, nicely, quite neatly wired up. But like I say, wow, I've never seen so much dust. That's amazing. It's I guess the voltage or whatever tiny voltage in here has, oh look at that, that touches, God, I can't believe how this even plays. I'm going to get some close-ups. Yeah, I guess the electricity, tiny voltage, just pulls the dust to these components because there's no airflow. It's not like dust getting stuck in a you know, in a fan or anything like that. This is just fantastic. I mean, I've never seen so much dust. Close up. It's like the mummy's tomb in there. Yeah, it's kind of it's almost a museum-y piece. Stop bleeping me, whoever you are. So just looking down here, I mean, it's actually gunged up with dust. It's not a problem in and of itself, but it's pretty ancient. Now I'm going to close up on one little joint here, because if that isn't touching out, or it's as close to touching out as you can possibly get, it's about 1/10 of a millimetre from grounding out the live side of the switch on a braided cable. But you know, it clearly has avoided grounding out so far. This is soldered to there, this is dragged over the top of here, so it grounds this out. That's, well, it's moving. Anyway, so it's really sat for ages, this thing. So it's quite funny how, yes, touch the screen please, thank you, how mucky it really is. So getting a few of these fantastic House of Horror close-ups. I think I might get some from around and about other places too, like I can't really picture the waggling G, waggling tuners. They're quite a thing unto themselves. Come on. Hellfire. This is not it's a great camera on this phone, but it really isn't the easiest thing to handle. Yeah, so all of these are a bit lifting off their housings. Sorry, I hope you're not getting phone signalled to death. And we've got completely grimy tuners there, strung back to front is a polite way of putting it. We've got what could be an unresponsive adjuster. Fingers crossed it moves at some point, but then we've got sort of grimy pickups. And extremely grimy stop bar, but all interesting stuff. And then along with that we've got some quite cool strap corrosion, or strap discoloration I should say, and there is some cracking that's happened, which kind of doesn't look too major. It's just, it looks like finish. But it's the least of my worries at the moment. My concern, as you know, oh yeah, now this is, yeah, there's quite a bit of cracking all along the, we know the fingerboard edge and the binding, but we sort of know where that's come from. Anyway, that's a good fun start. So let's put this down here. I'm going to pause. Oh, you're over there. Sorry, you couldn't see any of that. I was just taking pictures and you were staring at the bench. I'm going to go and do some research and see, get a feel for what may or may not be possible here. I can't really, not sure I can see of ways to get any more kind of any more WD into this thing. It just feels, what I can't see is how much is turning, whether the whole thing's twisting. You know, can I mark it in some way? Right, it's pressing down there. Let's turn that around there. Okay, it's staying in one place, but it's got a definite spring in its tail, like it looks to me like the centre part is staying in place, which is encouraging if it's undoing. Right, that's the first thing. We seem to be building up a gap, and I wonder if I should spray a little bit more into there so it gets into the probably put it down here, didn't I? Yes. I'm going to just put a little tiny bit into there. That's it. Really grimy, everything's grimy. So we shall see. I guess we'll take the pickups out as well at some point, and if we're going to clean them we'll have to. Let's put it back up here now. Sorry, you forget where the camera is. I'll put this, stand this back up here, and we'll go and take a pause. Now I'll crash into the light. Can we just stand it up there? Thanking you. Right. Yeah, there we have it. Okay. Now I always say things like, don't be afraid to press or to turn the whatchamacallit, the truss rod. Yeah, fear not. It's only there for that. You'll know when you're about to break it until you come across somebody else's vintage SG and you suddenly realise that that advice doesn't really count for much when you're facing the nemesis of somebody's SG. Okay, so what I've got here is my little bit of paper stuck. Now the thing about this is even though I kind of expected to get some paper stuck to here, I don't mind because I can soak this and get the paper off. And what I wanted to do is, I'll do it a bit crudely, is just to kind of cut off the, snip off the copper to begin with. And then we'll go around that. And what you should get is, of course you won't be able to screw it up very tight, but we will be able to get this screw in there, and for it not to fall apart and lose that little piece. That's the main thing. And I'll probably tidy up the rest of it with a sharp blade. So we'll end up putting a little screw through there, and it should stay together in one piece. Better than it was anyway. It's my little home repair. A piece of super glue along that tiny little edge will never do anything, but a little bit of backing, copper backing, will. Right, nerves, nerves, nerves. Yes, turn the truss rod. Don't be afraid until it's somebody else's. Of course, like I said, the other concern I have is if when we try to reattach the covers to those tuners, whether they snap the lugs off or not. In which case, you know, it would be needing a replacement set of tuners. But and then, you know, Gibson De Luxe tuners of that style are not that difficult to get, although clearly they won't be original from this period. They're going to be replacements. But if that happens, anyhow, that's strange. Yeah, a lot of neck relief on this old girl. I get a feeling that it's going to have to come all to pieces. Anyway, I think it's time to go and do some research and stick that on hold. Turn these off. Sorry about the view, it's not pretty great. We'll close up the shed for a minute. Take you out into the beautiful, warm, not much rain really, honestly, summer that we're enjoying here in the UK. By which my sarcasm means it's been plenty of rain, and there's going to be more all week. So it's kind of lucky that I've got some more guitars coming, another one tomorrow and some more in the week. And here's my remains of my ash tree, and those of you who remember the issue with the ash trees, this is actually not too bad. This is like a seedling thing that grows in the hedge, and it grows over our garden. There's the remains of our big one. Long may it stay, but we get the benefit of this beautiful thing that continually sort of straggles over our garden and becomes a sort of place you can hide under. And there's my little oak tree growing behind the palm thing. And yeah, so still I've got that bit, and there's one over there too, which long may they stay there. You never know. People around this neighbourhood kind of propensity to kill trees. And look, here's one I've got in the hedge, which I'm trying to save from the cows, and they're terrible because they've managed to get over here and get most of it. And they've eaten out all the other little shoots. There's a seedling, ash seedling growing in there, and every year they strip it back, and you can see the remains of last year. But I'm trying to give it a chance to beat the cows just for 1 year. This is funny. So I've attached it to a little weight to keep it out of the way of the cows. Little swines. Right, okay. Running between the raindrops. I was running between the raindrops with this vintage SG. Oh look, my amp is still on. Oh, backwards. So remember, yesterday we got as far as making sure that we freed up the truss rod. Hooray! And it's still good and good. Now, my concerns with the tuners really. But for £60 max, your name isn't Max, I know, but for 60 quid max, we could have some new tuners at a push. At worst, you could have everything else kind of original as it is, and 60 quid for a new set of Gibson De Luxe tuners, which would kind of look the same, only a bit shinier at the worst, right? So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to, rather than wind this thing because it's already broken, I'm now going to officially cut these strings. We're going to remove the strings, and we're going to basically pull out the hardware and the pickups and things and clean them. But the first thing I'm going to do is to pay attention to the tuners. We'll take them off and see whether they're repairable or not. The problem with these vintage tuners is typically the casing on the back is held on by two little metal lugs which are crimped or folded over to grip and therefore house the thing. And if that comes off, then theoretically the casing should fall off, but you wouldn't expect the tuners to come out of their little, I don't know what the word is called, gripper. Interestingly, by the way, just to note, screws facing backwards on this guitar. Okay, I'll put it on backwards, but people will say, "Hey, you know, it should be facing forwards." On this bridge, and I mean on this bridge, as in possibly not on other sort of bridges with piezo whatnots and things, there is a relevance, but on this bridge it can go either way. And the only thing, actually this has been modified in the past because this is showing all saddles facing the same way. Somebody's turned, usually they come in groups of 3, one way, 3 the other way. So this has been turned in the past. Now, my concern, as I said, is with these tuners, and the bottom line is we're in a situation with these where we have no choice, right? Because this amount of, in case you don't quite believe me, this amount of movement in the tuner, that amount particularly, right, will mean that as soon as you touch that, it goes out of tune. You can't have a guitar that is so prone to going out of tune. It's just no point. You wouldn't be able to perform on stage with this at all, because the minute you even whiffed near that tuner, the whole thing would go out of tune irreparably. So this isn't a kind of, oh no, I'd rather leave the originals on. If these don't work, then their not workingness renders this guitar unplayable. So whatever your kind of personal feelings are about vintage equipment, this is either fix them or bin them. Now, because these are particular and there are particular problems, I'm going to label which is which here. The funny part is, of course, is that these bits are all going to come apart in a minute, but hopefully we'll just do them in one by one so that they don't disappear into lots of different parts. So just for my own peace of mind, because I know that the E and the low E and the A are problematic at the minute. So the big E, the A, the D, the G, the B, and the little E. Okay. Now, having done that, I'll still need to get to the tuning screws. Tuner screws. Now, the other thing about these is I actually don't know whether they're biting or not, or whether they'll come out. So we'll sort of find this out on the return game when we come to refit. The other thing about these tuners is that they're absolutely filthy in the style of the sort of tuners. Filthy in the style of something that's been sat there forever. Okay, so we have the low E tuner. We have quite a lot of movement going on in here, right? See that? And we have a cover which has this done. Okay, this is a little bit different. So it's pressed in there and then crimped or struck, so it crimps and holds on. So I think we're going to have a problem keeping this secure. I think this is going to want to come out. Oh, it is already out, so it's going to want to continue coming out. In fact, I think at the moment this is only actually held on by this back one. So that's just my theory, right? This is held in place by a crimp. I've not seen these particular, I've not looked closely at these vintage Gibson De Luxes before. I've had them on things, I've put them on things, but I've not kind of looked. The cheaper, shall we say, the cheaper Chinese made copies of these things these days have a folding tab, which is what had me sort of slightly concerned about whether and let's take the A next, because actually we know that's the problem one. Yeah, that is what I'm taking next. Yeah, so the Chinese copies have a little tab which is held in place by folding over, and of course that doesn't withstand many folds. But then equally, this method of fixing them here doesn't seem to withstand too many either, or too many whatever's is holding it in place. And I think, as I said, it's like a, wow, that's quite, I mean, that would be quite some, it is like a strike with a you know, that thing you hit things with, center punchy type thing, but it puts a little, it kind of crimps it so that it, that's all I can think of, it crimps it so that it doesn't come out so easily. You can sort of see where the strike hits the surrounding metal as well if you were to zoom in. Problem is, these are practically out without really anything. I mean, they're barely held on now. So you've got, I don't know how well you can see that, but you've got that much movement now, and of course it's allowing this to move. I wonder if I should get a I wanted to sort of compare it really to a modern equivalent. I think I've got some spares, so let me just have a quick look. I mean, spares as in destroyable spares. I don't think I've got a whole set of these, so there's no point worrying. And of course, you actually could get away with the replacement one of these, but you wouldn't want to. It's a cheap Wilkinson or something. But anyway, the point being, oops. Oh look, I've got another set here. I'm going to write John Bassett on here because he kindly sent these to me, and I like to be able to remember for whom, from whom, whence these things come. So someday in the future when I pull them out, I go, hey, John Bassett, thank you for these. That's if I ever do pull them out. There seems to be rather a lot of things building up in there. Right. Maybe this is time to get the phone out. Well, I haven't got the right phone for good quality pictures anyway. So what we have here is the Jeep copy, and we have the Gibson De Luxe. And the Gibson De Luxe is much squarer in this sort of body part. It's got sharp corners. It's a much more kind of square construction. They look kind of similar construction from the side on. Now these are, when you get to here, I don't know how well you can see this, that probably doesn't help. Open up the light camera. Here you have the little top shell cover is held onto the base by this folded over tab. Two folded over tabs, and they're literally pressed down. And if they come loose, you can tend to be able to sort of tap them down with a hard object on a flat, solid support surface. Now these don't have that. They're obviously better made all round, but unfortunately these seem to be held in place by what looks like a struck piece. So it's kind of soft metal being struck and expanding and stopping it coming out. I can't actually see how that would work, to be honest. So whilst it's evidently the truth, I think, I still can't see how it works. So let me see if I can make any sense of it under the bright light. Right, well, it is definitely struck with a blow that goes diagonally across the little top tab, and somehow that the blow extends, by the way, onto the base surrounding. That's what I thought. So this blow kind of keeps these things together. Only love can keep these things together. Yeah, so that's how it's done. So that means this tab must be softer than the surrounding. Well, must it be? Yeah, you'd think it would be softer than the surrounding tissue. Forensic. CSI. But, so what's happened is, over the years of use, this turning of the thing has kind of gently prized this apart. So, really, okay. So what I can see, let's show you. It seems like a bit of a shame, but let's show you. Let us go into the innards of this little creature. Let's come down here. Now you can't get more than 10 centimeters. 10 centimeters. It's too close, so we're just about in focus now. So if I were to, it's not a good idea, but let's say I was going to lever up this. I'm kind of doing it by levering on the post, which is not brilliant to do. And here it's further away, so I can't do it. This actually probably needs a bit of force to get it in there. It's probably the worst thing to do, try and actually deliberately break one of these, because I don't think it's going to want to do it. It's going to show how beautifully well made these Chinese copies are. Yeah, it's literally going to resist my attempts to do it. I got loads of these, and I'll never end up using this spare one out of a set, so don't worry. It's almost never I get to replace it like that. So the next bit is I'd want to tap this out with something else, and presumably have this held somewhere. Again, you wouldn't typically want to do this on purpose. This would only happen in good time, in its own sweet time, so just bear with me a minute. Come on, just get under there. Ow! I said get under there. Do as I tell you. Make your heart 1,000 and SOS to the world. I'll send an SOS to the world. Come on, do what you're told. I think it's a little bit asking a bit much to bend this back right now. I tried. Anyway, the point is, maybe, come on, maybe. The point is, you can see these little tabs are strangely effective in keeping the cover on. It just doesn't want to go. Don't want to go. Anyway, I was trying to make a point really more than anything. So what you get, let's see if I can just prise at this end. There you go. So you get, actually if I prise away, I can probably get some of the bend taken out of that thing, since I don't mind breaking this. So here we go. Here's an example of getting it bent. And then if I put this back under here a minute, no, it won't go now because I've bent this one and not the other one. Huh? Bit of room now to get under here. Yes, thank you. Blimey. Love will change your heart. Right. Now I can probably get a bit of a vertical bend on that. Very good. So, the beauty of the construction of the Wilkinson tuner and its folded prongs. So, I mean, I guess I'm doing this just to make a point, really. Here we have it. Right. So the beauty of these is on some other kind of tuners, on other kinds of tuners, you have this thing is held next to that thing by a kind of little hooky arm, right? In this case, it isn't, because there's a device design allows uses the shell to do it. So the shell is what holds it in place. So this kind of goes something like that. I can't even remember if it's that side. Is it even that side? Something like that. There you go. Whatever. Yeah, like that. So that's held in place by there, and the only reason that doesn't move is because when it's clipped into there, actually should really do them together. Try and do them together. When you clip both of them together into there, and you go together, right? Yeah, really together, promise. And then you get some, I don't know, get a little hammer or something. That'll probably do. And you push those together, and then you tap down the tabs again, and you're away. And the whole operation and the stability of this is held in place by the tightness of the top. Ergo, if your little grippers have run out of mojo, and they're sort of now holding the thing flopping about like that, then this thing, quite naturally, will not stay put, and it will not only will it move around and affect the tuning as I showed you earlier on in the video, but it will also, if you keep on trying to tune it, it'll eventually grind the gears away anyway, because it's kind of the teeth on the teeth. It's not teeth, is it? The coils, screw thread on the doofer is hitting the thing at different angles and whatnot and stuff. So the bottom line is the only way to make this work is to find a way of kind of tying this down. And quite honestly, with this method here, I honestly don't think I can do it. As you can see, it's years of play or whatever has led to a point where this, whatever this little crimped bit did or does, is now no longer doing it, and it's kind of, well, you can see I've just very lightly levered it out. That didn't take any effort at all, and it is literally held on only by the amount of, I don't know what you can call it, spread of this bit of soft dish metal when hit upon with an object, and it twists it basically. It kind of spreads it, compresses it and spreads it, which technically holds it in place in this little thing. So, verdict, honestly, I think this would be, I mean, okay, we go, look, we think these are original, do we? Probably. Let's assume they're original, right? We want to be able to somehow push these tightly together. We want them to work without hardly any movement. So the first challenge we'd have is to somehow drive these closer together before delivering another punch of some sort. Now, I actually don't think that this is going to, a punch on this, it's already been done, so I'm not even sure that we've got a means to deliver sufficient distorting punch. We don't have the tool for that. I'm trying to think if there's any other clever way we can do it, maybe even soldering a little tiny blob, but the solder, I can't see that. There's so much metal here that it would shed the heat, and I don't even know if we would get a bite, and even if we did, the sort of levering force of this is still, if I could push and pull that off by hand, that's, it's a testament to how worn out it is. What a funny design. So it stays in place because you hit it with something across the top of the little lug, and that, by doing that, you just distort it enough theoretically to lock it in place. Just going to see if I can make it seat a little bit closer. Closer. Not really a lot of where to grip it or anything. So it's kind of it's kind of missing the ability to push it through and hold it there and then deliver this killer punch. But like I say, what is going to do that? I mean, a single punch wouldn't do it. Wow, how strange is that? This is the E, and it's same, and these are sort of randomly done. They're done across. Excuse me. The little thing is put in the slot and given a fair old whack. And I guess it drives. If we do, would that drive that down as well as? Maybe even there's even something that sits on this, pressing it down and then delivers the punch. But you see it standing up in this corner, which is not what we want it to do. There's not, also there is hardly anything we can do to gently press it in with the edge of a clamp. Again, it doesn't want to stay down there. It's sort of, well, I'm a little bit puzzled really, because like I say, this is not going to work. That just levers itself out. I think I'm going to recommend to Chris for a replacement set, and the reason for that is that a replacement set will be absolutely identical to this. I don't know if it'll have exactly the same construction there, but you know, all of this trying to fix something that's critical to the way the guitar plays, with a I think less than ideal technique in the first place. You know, and the proof is it's eventually, with use, it's levered its way out. That little bit of crimping hasn't ultimately held over time, and it's going on at least 2 of, possibly 3 of this set. So I'm going to recommend a 60 quid set replacement, because the only difference they'll look is they'll be shinier and newer, and it will look well, at present it would look a bit odd, but realistically it won't look odd by the time we've cleaned up the pickups and the stop bar and the bridge a little bit. So there we go, that's my recommendation. I'm going to take them all off, because I just, you know, I think realistically they're not fixable, and what is possible is, in the time that we've got, is to get another set in. And of course Chris can take these, and maybe someone else who specialises in repairing or doing something with these can do something with these, but I'm not going to be and it's not going to be something that I can do, certainly not with any guarantee of it lasting and continuing to hold, and I just think that would be time badly spent. Okay, so that's my decision. I'm going to go and send off a quick email to that effect now. I'm going to see where I can get them from within the time scale necessary. Oh well, hold on. So having said that, I think what we can also say at this point is that we might as well get on. There's only really 4 things to clean in this respect. I mean, that's pretty new and shiny. It could even be a more recent replacement, judging by the condition of it. It's a German-made bridge. This has sat, I mean, again, underneath this is pretty shiny, but it has sat and corroded. So I'm kind of interested to see. Now, I talked to Chris originally about this, and he said his method, he would go about this by applying some chrome polish, Ultrasol or something like that. And I kind of originally was saying, well, I'm not sure I want to do that, because vintage guitar, blah blah blah, and you know, I don't want it to end up being shiny, or you know, because it's not the sort of look of the thing. But truth is, when you've got furry green corrosion, it's probably just as well to get as much of that off as possible. If you're going to get any of it off, then you might as well get as much off as you can, and the result will be a bridge that looks cleaner. There's no way about it. You know, it's going to polish up much better than it was. So this is the bottom. But I think, and the same applies to the pickups, although you know, old pickups with some grime on them sort of look cool, and you know, you don't want your 1963 guitar to sort of shine and glitter too much. At the same time, this kind of corrosion looks like it won't it won't just brush off gently. You know, you do have to sort of run the risk of polishing it out a bit, and then you know, you get, it's still not new looking, but it's at least the green stuff is going to be removed with some work. Now I'm not going to take a Dremel or anything to this, because I think, judging by this, even the blue copper style corrosion is coming out, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is a chrome covered copper, some sort of copper compoundy thing, so chrome plated with a copper type of, I don't know, alloy base or something, but hence the blue sort of, what do they call that sort of corrosion when the blue stuff comes out? Oxidization of some kind. Anyway, so you see it's working even for the roughest stuff. Just keep at it. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do similar for the pickups, and I'll pull them out a bit to do that, and we'll get sort of the worst of it off, and it won't look brand new anyway, which is kind of good. And you can sort of see that we get most of the grime off. I don't want to scrape it and remove the plating or anything like that, but it's taken the bulk of the fur off. It's just makes it look slightly less water damaged and unloved. And the same thing, to be honest, we could do with these, right? So you take what kind of appears to be, judging by the wear, it appears to be an original vintage tuner, and if you were just to apply a little bit of polish to it, I mean, as I say, it's not really something we're going to use now, so but you can then also get quite a lot of cleanup done, and they will come up looking pretty new if you can be bothered to do each one. And actually the tuner posts here look so dull, and so uniformly dull. I can't help thinking that it has been sat in a box for a very long time, but I don't know. I'm not a sort of, what do you call it, a relicking specialist of any kind. In fact, I don't ever do that sort of stuff, but so that's a pretty shiny tuner box compared to the other one. But so let's stick now. What was this one? This was the A, wasn't it? If that's the E, this is the A. The E, the A. Anyway, right. So I'm going to work mainly on the pickups. I'll get all the tuners off. I'm going to work on the pickups. The bridge, to be honest, is just a rub down away from being clean, so it makes me think this is quite a lot newer than the stock bar. You can see that that's a pretty clean thing. And who knows? I doubt the original bridge would have been made in Germany, right? I would say. And maybe these tuners also, would they have been stamped made in Germany as a Gibson De Luxe? But they certainly are. I don't know. You tell me. But either which way, it's not really critical to this, because they will not perform, so they really should not be in the game. This actually has a lot of corrosion on the individual what's it, so you might want to clean it out. As it happens, where's the thing gone? As it stands, okay. Lost my mind. Lost my screwdriver, and I didn't put it back. Oh, okay, I prized the thing off. Did I put it in my pocket? Why would I have done that? Oh, well, I put a bit of bone in my pocket, but you do, don't you? Right, it's official. I'm looking for the black screwdrivery thing that I prized open this tuner with. Did I just chuck that back in? Did I just put that screwdriver in the box? No. Okay. It's official, I put it back in here. What's wrong with me? Jim. Right, so for example, this does work and all that, but it is incredibly gunged up, like a lot of this stuff. So it's a couple of things you could do, I suppose. You could undo it and do it up a bit, and that cleans the screws off. Actually, it's probably the best way to do it if you don't want to take the whole thing apart. It's just, while I'm here, just run it backwards and forwards. And of course we do have brushes of various kinds that we could get in there to bring out. Actually, that's a heck of a lot cleaner as is. And if you really wanted to be cool, you could put a bit of grease in there. I mean, that will just attract more dust over the years, but it would also make this spin round nice and smooth too. So why don't we do that? Let's take a little tiny dab of grease, a little spot of grease, a little slice of Poland. Oh no, what was that song? Springtime. Do people think that's not funny anymore? I thought it was quite a good satirical thing in its day. Right, so having putting on the Ritz, putting on a dab of grease, just run it up and down a bit. Now, basically, there's nothing wrong with having this moving as freely as possible for the time that you come to set the intonation, because frankly, Scarlett, you don't have a lot of spare room to play with on a guitar like this. Now I'm going to return it to where it was, assuming that the previous owner will have got it somewhere near the right place, but I don't know. So then I'm going to do the next one, which gives me a sort of in between the two things. So at the moment I'm just turning it to remove the baked on dirt, and then right. There it is. Holy moly, Doctor, I'm losing my mind. Yeah. So this kind of those who might have watched any of my videos in the past know how much I love the Tune-o-matic bridge in all its glory, all its heavenly glory, as Bruce Lee might have said. It's a grotesque invention, but the point is, it's all we've got. So much as I dislike it, we're stuck with it, and we might as well have it working as smoothly as possible, because the critical part comes when you've got the strings on and you're trying to intonate it there and then. And some people will go, well, take your strings off, but if you take your strings off, then you're guessing, and then you have to tighten them back up again and then try it again, see if you're intonated. So most people don't. Most people will intonate with the strings on, understandably, because that's the way you can tell whether you've intonated or not. So I'm just going to clean each of these out, because when this bridge is on and the strings are under load and you can't get proper access to the bridge, which is possibly why this was put on screws facing back, which I prefer as in many cases, because it gives you better access to the screw heads and it gives you better ability to adjust the intonation. So that may be why it was facing that way. It's how I would often do it, unless someone's guitar comes with it done a different way, in which case I respect the original way they had it, whilst cursing them loudly. Anyway, so this is one of those, it could be one of those AMSR, Auto Meridian Sensory Response videos. It wouldn't be punctuated by little slips like that, where it scrapes the hell out of my finger. And that's the problem with this kind of bridge, is that it's very difficult to adjust without slipping out of the slot, because they decided to use a slot for this, and then they decided to make it by default very stiff, and then they decided to make it sit in a space where there's no room to do the adjustment, and then they decided to make it difficult by putting a slot on the end of it instead of I suppose a slot may ultimately last a little bit longer than a Phillips heady type thing, possibly. So this is coming out quite nicely, this little bit of excessive use stroke cleanup. These actually have two circlips holding each one in place, but my goodness, how do they sit? It's all over the place, those circlips. I wouldn't like to figure that one. Does that one sit all the way across? No, it's half and half. Blimey. I don't want to take it apart. Please don't make me have to move the saddles, ever. Anyway. So yeah, there's just a long, drawn out process of doing this. clean all the goo off down there and come all the way back. I try to use my fingers to hold the screw head in place so that it doesn't slip and burr the edges, but it's not always possible, I'm afraid. It's just real life intervenes. Right, so tonight I'm going off to Marquis in Plymouth to upload some videos. So they're currently exporting videos right now from Final Cut Pro. So my way of doing it is, as you know, I don't do any editing. There are two simple reasons, right? One is, from the outset, I didn't want to get into any ego stuff about doing this, right? I didn't want to spend any time going, oh, do I look right, or is that a bad, unflattering view, or did I make the wrong move here, or did I make a mistake there, or even did I play the wrong note there, or is my guitar playing crap, or any of that stuff. I just couldn't be bothered. I'm too old to worry about that. There isn't enough lifetime left to worry. So I decided that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to do any editing at all. Apart from the fact, actually it's probably several reasons, but apart from the fact that I also wanted this just to be, I didn't want to hide or cover up or try to be anything I wasn't. So it seemed to me that just doing what I do, if I even felt motivated to eradicate or change anything, then it was fakery, you know. And if there's one thing I've learned at this point in my life, is that being who you are is all there is. You know, anything else is fakery and too much effort. So I decided from early on, for that and other reasons, that this was just going to be unedited, because I didn't want to get into the pandering to my own ego, like, did I look cool there? Do I look too bald there, or am I too jowly here? All that stuff. So I couldn't be bothered with that. And so I didn't. I thought I'd just leave that completely and just be myself. And that was actually a nice, very freeing thing to be. I'm going to take these out for a minute. Yeah, so that was one thing. And then, of course, the other very practical thing is that there is no actual payoff. There's no payoff in editing for me. In other words, you know, some occasional critics turn up and go, you know, don't you know that I have a short attention span, and I much prefer you to have taken the time to edit me a nice snappy video instead of wasting my time with all your mumbo jumbo and hocus, no, what do they call it? Dilly dallying. That's right. And the truth is, yes, I absolutely get it that you would prefer I did you a 3-minute video and edited out everything except the bits that you think are useful. Now this is interesting. I'm pulling this up, and straight away the pickguard came up with the screw, so keeping an eye on that as well. Yeah, so anyway, so that I get it, there are some people who like that, but you know, the beauty is in the internet age, if you don't like this format, you can go somewhere else and somebody else will show you how to do it, which is great. So you know, I wasn't really setting out from the outset to entertain anyone or earn likes, so there was no point in kind of pandering, if you like, to a sort of a younger audience with a short attention span. You know, if you wanted to find out something useful from these videos, then my take was you were grown up and you could fast forward and switch it off if there's nothing here that interested you. It's interesting that I don't know if this is shrunk around these screws, but they're kind of, in each case they've lifted up the pickguard as they've come out, because they're stuck in the pickguard. So it could do with just a little bit of widening, just so we don't end up with this kind of causing any buckling when we put it back on. And the only simplest way that I would do that would be just a little tiny bit of clean out of with this spiky thing here, just so that we've got a little bit more clearance for the screws. It's hardly any modification, but it's just so they don't grip and drag the pickguard around with them. So you can see that you've got some of the original coloration under here, which is quite cool, or more original, and it's got sort of pools of, or clusters of gunge in certain places where it looks like it's I don't know, it could be liquid spilled in there at some point in the past. I'm just, by the way, just going to clean off any burrs on here, because it has a little, where the screws kind of caught it, has a little bit of a lip on it which will stop it sitting flat, which is something unhelpful and unnecessary. Yeah, anyway, so back to the videos. So you know, I've made films with video documentaries in the past, and it's something I've enjoyed doing, and I for one know absolutely how long it takes to edit a coherent piece in video, and I've absolutely no desire to get into doing that here, because it would take absolutely months to do. You know, and I would just be here forever editing videos. So if I did, let's say I did five setups a week, which I don't often always do, but let's say I did, then the entire rest of my waking week would be spent editing, if that's what I did. If making it short, snappy and thoroughly entertaining was my primary objective, you know, i.e. getting likes and having such a massive fan base that I could buy a limousine with the earnings from the advertising. And clearly that was never my goal from the outset, so I didn't do that. Oh, how nice that is. Ah, lovely. I'm going to go around the edge of here too, because I just hate the gunge that builds up. Get back in your little tube. I'm almost out of this stuff now, which is really expensive. This alone, this little kind of polishing compound, it's Eterna Shine, and it is brilliant on guitar finish. It's the best I've ever used. It's very expensive, and I'm sure somebody in China sells a version that does, actually I might as well lift these up. I'm sure somebody sells a version that's like 1,000,000 times cheaper, but this turns out to be the best I've come across so far, and so I keep using it. And it'll take a guitar from a kind of hand sanded and finished condition to well, look at these rusty old things. They're not destroyed, but they are a bit old. Yeah, it'll take a guitar from a sort of hand sanded to almost buffed looking finish, which is great. So you can, if you don't have a buffer, you can get some pretty good finishes using something like this stuff. Right, now what I was doing that for is so that I'm going to clean the pickup anyway. So while I'm here, I can just get in and under the edges of the surround, which will clear up some of the gunge. But it also means it will sit this back down on a clean base. And again, you can see it. I don't have to do much, but that's really refreshed that. It's brought a bit of it's not a bit, it's brought a shine back to it. And there we have it. What does this say on here? Ooh, doesn't say anything particularly unusual, but it says patent number 2.737.842. Maybe I should take a picture of this for posterity's sake. Stay there. Switch off so I don't get dazzled. Hold on. Camera. Oh, whoops. That's like my pal Malcolm's had a great first gig with his band, his new band. Pow. There we have it. In its little hole, nice and clean. I'll put that away. Yeah, anyway, so back to the videos. Absolutely no point for me in editing. So I oh, hang on. Well, this is a new guitar, so the position of the pickups is not going to be critical. I'm going to set them back again when I finish. But if it was somebody's much gigged, trusted and played guitar, then you might want to reconsider, or you might make a note of where the preferred position was. I'm just going to actually drop that back there for a minute, keep it secure. Yeah, anyway, blah blah blah. Video editing, it takes a hell of a long time. And you know, those guys who do video editing on YouTube put in a ton of work, and they'd probably tell you if you looked at any of those YouTubers, they will say that they spend a huge part of their lives editing and annotating and transcribing and doing all the stuff that you do when you are a serious YouTube video producer, and you're constantly working to build your audience and all those things that bring you revenue and stuff. Mostly because those young guys who do that living, try to make that living through YouTube, are doing it as their primary, mostly trying to make it their primary source of income. They're the kind of guys and girls who have, sorry, just guys generally, who have an ambition to be video YouTube celebs or video producers, and that's what they've set out to be. So of course they're going to take the whole thing really seriously and get into the whole thing, including edits, titles, thumbnails, SEO, and all the gunge that goes with being a YouTube video producer, but which not first and foremost my interest. So I figured right from the outset that not only was it a ton better for me not to chase being liked, or to pander to my own ego, or to pander to anyone else's attention span, particularly. Look at that. I mean, okay, it's a lot nicer. I've got to say, I know it's cleaned it up a bit, but hey, look, it's... What are you doing? Stay still. Pretty. We've still got the old, gungy old original screws. I mean, I have black screws that I could replace, but they're corroded a little bit, but they're not going to break off in the wood or anything like that. If they were, then I would reconsider, but if they feel strong enough. Yeah, anyway, so I made a decision very early not to do any editing, which would save me from all the ego worries, and it means quite simply that I could only do this if I could just not have a self-critical thing about it and not worry about how I looked or sounded and all that sort of stuff. And it's a nice relief not to worry and just to get on and do it. So I kind of just switched it off right from the outset by saying to myself, okay, you're just going to do it, you're not going to edit anything. And as it happens, it suits my approach for all kinds of other reasons, as you know. One is that it shows everything I do without kind of editing and subterfuge, so I'm not faking stuff, and if I make mistakes, I think there's only about 2 videos I've ever not shown, and they were actually only because what I did ended up in a bit of an issue out of about 800 or 1,000 setups. That's the back one. There was a kind of an issue for the owner, and in both cases I refunded the owner fully and said, look, I'm pretty sure I can't help you. 2 different sized screws going on here, so I'm just going to make sure I know that the long one goes back in that corner. Anyway, so that was there you go. I'm not going to take a picture of this one, same pattern number, I guess. Yeah, so I never edit stuff, and I almost never, 99% of the time, don't self-censor and kind of ban or delete videos. Once or at most twice, I think I've done that for customer reasons, respect reasons, that we don't agree on how it's worked out, or that we've come to an agreement that we're going to part ways. Because any of you who run businesses, you'll know that actually once in a while you have to let a customer go, for their sake and for yours, and it's rare, but there actually are occasions when some people off the record would describe it as firing customers, and you could see it like that. But just as a customer has a right to fire you if they don't like how it's going in their relationship with you, but occasionally you do have to fire a customer or let them go, or respectfully part ways with them, just for the simple reason that it's not working out. And in those cases, the very rare cases that's happened to me, I've not posted the video, so it's about the only time where you'll see that happening, or that will happen. But again, that's completely different from editing. I still won't edit. I'll just, in a very rare occasion, not show it. So yeah, it was a blessed relief not to have to worry about editing, But I still do get the occasional visitor who then, will expect me to be doing it to their format, and I just have to try and retain a sense of humour and explain in a friendly way, as if they don't mean bad, as if they're just really surprised to find that someone isn't doing it the way they expect it to be done. And I could get all moralisy and preachy. I try not to. But occasionally, when they're really obtuse, I will say to them a little thing like, you could improve your life considerably by not assuming that your expectations are the way the world should be, of how the world should be, are correct. That it might be that other people do things for very good reasons that you just don't understand or don't know. They'll tell me things about how to do my business, or how to I should and shouldn't do something, and I kind of say to them, well, I've been doing this 800 times over, and it's worked pretty much every single time. So, without being too snotty, I sort of say, you will forgive me if I refer to that body of experience. I take my cue from that, rather than some guy who's pretty certain he's right on the internet, because there's quite a lot of them around. And the truth is, including me, 10 years, 15 years ago, I might have been as insufferable, or more so, because it's a very easy trap to fall into, this, your crusade of righteousness in every sense. You get, I know, you're wrong, and then you just become this sort of righteous idiot. Anyway, I try and gently suggest to them that that's what they might be being, and that things might just be more fun if they weren't quite so certain that they knew better all the time. And actually, in my world, if you still think you know better, then create me an argument why, convince me why. But you're going to have to supply evidence that, that supports your theory about it. It's not enough just to say you're right and I'm wrong and then start screaming, because it doesn't work. Okay, so that's that. What I'm also going to do now I'm here, because I'm a sucker, I'm just going to take these cur knobs and just clean around there as well, just because I can. I'll put them back in their familiar order, only for the reason that each of them might be slightly differently crimped onto these posts. Put it this way, that the shafts of the post may have slightly different dimensions, and they may be kind of suited to each one individually from the first time it was put on. You'd never know, but it could be. So I don't want to end up breaking the crimps and breaking the little brass piece because I've not paid attention to that and think something should go where it shouldn't. And this stuff, I'm almost out, I think. Okay, and once I've done this, I'll take a break then, and I will go in, I'll restart some more of my ultra long trademark videos going. Let's just check these, make sure these are firmly in place first of all. Is that one moving? No, it's really important. Well, we've got a chance. That's obviously wobbling, but providing this bit isn't moving. Is this bit moving? Yes, this bit's moving. That needs tightening as well. Yeah, I'll go in and start exporting out some more of my long-winded videos for uploading from Marks over the next couple of days. And meanwhile, I'll also go and propose to Chris that we order in some new Gibson De Luxe tuners rather than struggle to try and repair these. Okay, so these are all on, come all the way back. 0 in this position is my personal taste, but anyone can put them where they want. 0, 0, 0. It's a very crude process, pushing knobs onto pots. I'm always worried that it's going to cause some damage. Okay, so this is moving all over the place and we want to tighten it up. And the thing I noticed from yesterday, which means I'm going to take this off again, the thing I noticed was how close the I noticed this is spinning in a hole. That's not actually gripping anything at all. I've got to reattach this pickup. Whoops, I've just turned it over with the pickup flapping about. Oh no, that's the pick guard. I'm alright. Yeah, I noticed that one of these screws is spinning. There you go. It's not actually biting into anything. So, and that's because it isn't. How funny is that? That's missed the point altogether. It never was attached to anything. Yeah, I noticed this switch is about to ground out on a piece of braided wire, so that's a kind of shorting accident waiting to happen, and we want to tighten this up. I never quite remember which way I'm going with this, but so I need to hold this, and I don't want it to turn any further, but I want it to stay up and down, and I want to be able to lock it back up, and that's it. Lovely, done. And we're a bit away from the braid. In fact, it's been spread out. The points on this switch have been spread out, and I'm going to move them away on that side, just so it is just out of the way of this braided wire, because there's a potential for it to thingy ground out. So this screw is always only going to be sitting here, which I think is a shame. The only way around that would be to either extend something on there for this to grip into, like fit a piece of timber to the edge to provide this a grip, or potentially to relocate the hole slightly, but that's a bit messy. I mean, the other thing you could do, by the way, is possible, is to actually move all of them and use, you could get the screw in there, but then you have to re-drill, fill and re-drill all these holes to make it work. So that's just an observation. It annoys me because it's a bit of a stupid design. Well, it's not stupid design, it's a bit dopey where the screw has been put in the worst possible place. And then, you know, it's being pushed up here and fit like that, whereas really it I wonder, what should we build a little buttress here? We could do, you know, but it takes it away from being original. So I'm going to leave this. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to leave this screw dangling. But it's something that Chris needs to know is a dangling, and there's basically no way to not have it a dangling. I mean, there's a missing screw on the custom scratch plate on the Melody Maker, which he lives with it. So, you know, realistically, I would suggest not. I mean, if I put this in, it's going to rub in against the edge of this hole. It may just stay in place. It'll stay in place, but it's not actually doing anything. Right. Just thought I'd let you know. So we're forewarned is forearmed. So we've got nice shiny pickups, which I now can sink back in right the way down for the time being. So they're down where, sort of where they began, nearly, maybe a bit lower again. And then we can, it hides all the stuff on the sides as well, so they look pretty clean and tidy from here on. Whoop, I think I might have just almost run out of adjustment there. Right, okay, good. These are a bit grimy. Might maybe just kind of clean up a little bit on the top of these. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, going back to the video thing. So that was the whole reason for doing what I did. And you know, the good thing is it wins on loads of levels. You know, the first one is that it adds to the sense of credibility of what I do. You know, that people see that I'm not covering stuff up, and that when I make mistakes, they're pretty much there with me when I screw up and realise what I've done. And you know, it's not fake. I mean, it's just that's what happens. And you know, if you pretend you're perfect, then actually it's funny, you don't put people off exactly, but I think just what happens is people instinctively, certain people instinctively warm to and trust people who they judge are realer than people they think are, you know, trying to be something. And it can't be deliberate. You can't fake that. You can't set out to fake that. What do they call it? Authenticity or something. You know, you either just be who you are, and you can't be who you are unless you're kind of comfortable with it, and you don't feel the need to pretend. And I think you either are that kind of person or you're not. And the good thing is, you know, the people I consider my target customers, or my target market, ideal customers, you know, they are those kinds of people too, and they see and recognise that quality of being, I suppose you could call it, you know, and you know, and that's the way it should be. And there are plenty of other people to do stuff for other people who don't like that way of being, or that kind of, yeah, that quality in people, you know. And I do get people who just can't stand it, and they have to tell me how much they can't stand it with a thumbs down and a, you know, some abuse or whatever. But that's the way the world works, isn't it? So it actually just works really, really fine for my target audience stroke market, if you want to put it that way. And so the bit that has always amazed me actually is the fact that YouTube not only allows me to do it for free, you know, very kindly puts up all my videos, but also doesn't charge for it, and pays some advertising revenue. So the funny part about that is I think you really have to, it really gives you a clear idea of how valuable the advertising revenue is to them if they not only let you have all of that service, quote unquote, all of that service for free, but they also pay you as well. That's quite telling, I think, that you are really, as a creator, you are extraordinarily valuable to them. And I think they know, well, I know they know that, which is why they pay revenue for advertising, and it's why they actually permit a lot more, or they exercise far less control and censorship than anyone can imagine, because they don't want to impede people's freedom to create on the platform. Mostly, I mean, they have a bit of PC stuff that goes on, and you know, certain people get their stuff shut down, you know, because there are certain norms. But you know, even those people who've been deplatformed everywhere else, for example, someone like Tommy Robinson, even Tommy Robinson, in inverted commas, even Tommy Robinson still has a platform on YouTube. You know, and as do all the, you know, and it's not fair necessarily, it's not the same pound for pound, but as do anybody whose views you may not like. If you know, and the truth about that, I suppose, is that, you know, it's only by allowing, thank you, that was good, it's only by allowing people's views to be seen and considered that you, God almighty, look at that, that's been burned off at some point. Yeah, you know, it's, I think, I'm a free speech advocate. I think it's far better that you allow, or you encourage free speech so that people can hear and consider views, even the ones they can't stand, so they understand where people are coming from. There's no substitute for that. I mean, I might not like Islamic fundamentalism, but I would rather know word for word what its followers say than to actually be getting it from the mouths of some distorted media outlet who wants me, you know, has a vested interest in me thinking a certain way about it. So that's why I'm a free speech advocate, and I also don't think there should be any stupid hate crime type definitions. I think if you have free speech, everything is game, and you can say everything and anything, and really the focus, if we waste energy or spend energy, it should be on encouraging people to be resilient and to not react so explosively to someone calling my mother a bad thing, or someone saying I'm bald, or I can't do guitars. It's much better to develop the skills not to react to that stuff than it is to be trying to police what somebody can and can't say. Anyway, but I think that's why YouTube has I think it's still a good place. Look at the gunge on here. I mean, nicotine, probably. Wouldn't surprise me. But as I've done on the front, I'm going to give this a little bit of a freshen up on the back of the headstock, the neck, and the all over really. And it's not because I don't like vintage mojo or anything like that. It's just because I'm trying to keep it relatively consistent, since I've done some cleaning of the pickups and stuff, and the whole guitar now doesn't look like it sat in an attic for 50 years. Well, not much like that. I'm giving it a bit of a freshen up where possible, but it doesn't really change the essence of the guitar, which is good. Just gets rid of some of the coatings of grime that aren't really necessary. And it's also, as I said with this one before, I'm going to clean the fingerboard on this one as well, which I didn't with the Melody Maker, because that's been Chris's guitar for a while and it's kind of got his finger oil and DNA, but this one is a recently acquired one, and without being too grim and gruesome, it is nice to have a bit of a fresh start, so that you're not just playing on top of somebody's cigarettes, nicotine fingers or whatever. I'm not judging what their fingers were gooed up with, but it is nice to have a bit of a fresh start when you buy something. So just on the edges of this, it won't take away most of this stuff, but it will just lift a little bit of the grime. Leave that discoloration because that's kind of burned into the finish, but here's some sort of, this is just worn on grime. You see it's coming off and it's just mucky. It doesn't have to be part of the guitar. It's not essential. But we will retain the mojo of the orange belt buckle, but the rest is literally grime, old grime. So in removing it, we give it a sort of feeling of freshening up. Lovely, jubbly. Feels fresher, looks fresher, without a doubt. Do the same for the neck. Polish that off. You see the old nicotine stains or whatever still on the headstock, the discoloration, but so it's got its mojo feel, but we've literally taken off this thick layer of grey grime that was on here. And I make no apologies for doing that. There's a bit on the end there too, which I make also few if no apologies for removing. You don't have to live with it, I'm telling you. There you go. That is actually proper grime. There you go. Wow. Beauty. Now we've got the pickguard, which actually, has scratches and it's had a bit of life, so it's not gonna sparkle, but it's fine. You can again take off some of the surface grime and it will have a bit of a sparkle to it, a bit more of a sparkle. There you go. What I will do on this guitar too is I will take a hold of the, I'll get the fret strip out, protector strip, and I'm going to fret rubber all of these frets. It's because they're kind of corroded up here and they've been left for a long time, so I think it will improve it. It's not like a full fret dress or anything, which it doesn't really need. Okay, that's interesting. Are we short of... oh, I've missed it, I've mixed it up. There it is. Thought I'd lost one of the screws. Yeah, it won't be, it's not like a full fret dress, but it doesn't need that, and I don't want to go anywhere near that with this guitar anyway, because like the Melody Maker, the frets are quite low, and we're lucky in both cases, well, not lucky, but in both cases, because one of the things that tends to happen, or can happen, seems to happen when the frets are worn down low, is you do seem to get a kind of natural leveling that occurs after so many years of playing, and it's a sort of bonus in a way you get out of it. So we have this nice situation where basically you don't need to do any fret leveling, because you can set a low action, and lo and behold, no pun intended, lo and behold, you get a really nice playing action, but it's because the frets are so low. And, you know, it's convenient then, because I don't want to take any fret metal off here. So first of all, I'm just going to give this a sort of degreasing, a little bit of a degreasing before I do any polishing. Just to, you know, this is the sort of, Chris may have done this, but just as a kind of courtesy, the sanitary factor, I just want to get rid of possible leftover DNA from someone else. And again, it's not critical, it doesn't affect the guitar, how it plays, but it's one of those things that tends to feel nice when you bought another guitar and it becomes yours, and it's a sort of milestone that you kind of clean off somebody else's grime. Now of course, with the age and play of this guitar, the frets have got some not notching, grooving as well up at this end, chord end, but again, it is by no means in the sort of realm of needing to be done. It's just a visual aesthetic thing, and again, as a judgment call on a guitar with this relatively little fret metal left, it's definitely not something I would go after to try and improve for the sake of it. You know, it's purely cosmetic, and it doesn't get in the way of play. You won't feel any clicking or notching or anything. Okay, I'm happy with that. That's nice and clean. I'll get the fret rubbers ready for a bit later on. Fret rubbers. Where are you? One. And one. And one. Oh, 1.5. I cut one in half. I thought I cut the other one in half. Hey? Hey. That's crazy. What happened? Okay. Well, there's two halves of that. Where's the protector strip? Oh, this is doing me bumps in a minute. Dear self, where in the name of something or other did you put the fret protector strip? The answer is, you don't know, do you? The answer is, you've managed to go and lose it. Oh, well done. Come on. You only had it out using it the other day, along with these here rubbers. Go in the back here. Methinks no. Is it there? No. Is it here? Oh, I'm sorry about this. This is both boring and annoying. Do it go in there, maybe? Ah! How rarely I use this thing, I tell you. And I used it the other day, and promptly managed to stinking well lose the thing. Considering it should be right there with the fret rubbers, because that's the only time I ever used it. And is it there with the fret rubbers? Yes, it is. Look at that. Sneaky little devil. Stuck to the underside of that thing. Right. So, I did cut one in half, but not the other. Why did I do one and not the other? I don't understand, really. I honestly thought I cut both in half. Maybe I only used one of them. So let's enjoy the experience of trying to cut the other one in half. Will it work? Will it help? I know. Why don't I? No, if I try and do it on my saw, I'll blunt it, won't I? Let's just leave it as it is. Right. Anyway, the point of all of this is that fret protector strip is a bit of a clumsy thing. They never last terribly well. But we have a means of basically polishing out a corroded old fret, and you can do it with the slightly grittier one to start with and go all over all of the frets. And of course this is just clipping the edge of the, what do they call that thing? You know, the nibs. But then you go over it with the lighter grade afterwards, and the strip obviously protects the surrounding fingerboard. Now you could do this by taping it all off, and there we have just a livened up. Like I say, it's not mirror finish as I would probably ideally like, but it's a fair bit better than not at all. There's still a bit of grime on here. It's just caught me out. Come on, I don't want grime on here at all. No. We're removing grime. Grime does not belong. Grime does not pay. Right, thank you. Better. Right. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do, and I don't know how well you can see that, but last fret versus the one before it. It's a hell of a lot nicer. It's not a full polish by any standards, but it's a workable alternative. Now I'm going to come back and do that. I'll do that off camera while I go and have a break, a cup of tea, and check out what Chris wants to do with regards to the tuners. Okay, see you in a bit. Right, one has just replaced the old damaged tuners with the new ones, and so we are kind of in the ready department to. This one was fitting backwards, wasn't it? We'll leave it as it was. We're ready to restring. We've still got to cut the nut slots on this guitar, and we have to. We've got to do it with the. I don't know what the word would be. Not sacrificial strings. I don't think I can find any 8s. I think I just chucked them away, thinking to myself that I might, or forgetting that I might need them. Anyway, but we can do it. We can do it carefully. So here we have new strings. Somebody mentioned on YouTube actually about on the video, the Melody Maker video, somebody said, oh, the tuning instability could well be down to very light strings on this on this short scale guitar, meaning the Melody Maker, and I think really, technically speaking, you wouldn't really call the Melody Maker a short scale guitar. It's a Gibson scale, isn't it? So, and in reality, the it should, you know, it won't make the strings that much lighter. I mean, a little bit. You know, people say that a 9 gauge on a 25, whatever it is, 24 3/4. Gibson scale is as light as 9s on a Strat scale, which no doubt that's true. But let's put these back in. But like I say, it's not typically what we would call a short scale, although it is a shorter scale. So the thing about really short scale guitars is, yes, they do become kind of impossible to play because the strings become so slack. What do we do? All right, the bridge is down. The strings become so slack that they're actually really difficult to keep in tune. Not because they go out of tune technically, but because they bend so much when you press them that they're actually difficult to play and keep in tune. Now what I'm going to do on this side is I'm just going to put the other, the high E on this one, just so I can get as close as I can on the bridge setting. But yeah, so anyway, I had to assure the chap posting that the out of tune, or the tuning instability, was predominantly down to the nut on the Melody Maker. So, and that's very common. I've found many guitars has, you know, just about every guitar with a solid nut has the same problem. So I'm going to just take that a little bit further back than the typical 1 fret's worth, just to make sure that it really sits on these tuners without sliding everywhere. So these are the replacement ones, it's straight on. The interesting thing about them is they have a different construction to the original ones. Obviously you can see straight away that crimped tab thing must not have been a good effective system, and they've clearly replaced it over the years. You know, smart, get on and change it because it wasn't working. Yeah, so they're a different construction, and I did actually see that on the marketing material when I looked online for them, but yeah, so these should last quite some time longer. Okay, let's bring these pickups out a little bit now. For now. Okay, so there we go. Actually, the first fret action isn't terrible on this, but we will need to make some adjustment on this. Wow, that is a sharp stop bar, cutting the string if I'm not careful. Right, so I'm just going to get this finished today, because Chris is coming to pick this up and the Melody Maker tomorrow, so we'll be on target, which is good. I mean, somebody may be able to fix those original tuners, or it may not make economical sense, but either which way, they're there so that they can go with the guitar as original, should Chris ever want to sell it, should anyone want them. Oh, just before I do that, I'm going to make the assumption, right, where did the bits go? Epiphone. Is that it? Is that it? Is that it? No. Right, where I must have put it down here. They are. I was going to say the two screws, and they're little hex. They're little Phillipsy things. Okay, so we've got this very flimsy joint, you know, thing, broken bit at the bottom. So let's try and come on you. Okay. Just going to lightly tack this in, and hopefully, and that's missing the hole, believe it or not. Actually difficult to see where the hole is. Right, that's as far in as I'm going to tack that. So it does the job of holding it on, but doesn't put any pressure on it. Who's that? Okay. Directly overhead now, helicopter. Blue underside and 3 white, light blue chevrons. Chevrons? Yeah, you know what I mean. Don't know what that has markings like that. Is it police or could be the doctors? Okay. Yeah, sounds like it's doing a circuit. Here it comes again. Where are you? Oh, there's an airliner. Stopped out there somewhere. Look at this, I'm actually working on this guitar as opposed to being in the hammock. What is the world coming to? Don't worry, I shall get out there shortly. I'll let down the side on this 6th of June 2019. Okay, and last but not least, the B. The B, 2B, and not 2B. Now, I guess one of the good things about doing 8s on this, using 8-gauge string, when we come to cut the nut slots, it'll be a lot easier. They're much less likely to grip because they are so much sleeker. Got some goo or glue on the end of this thing I need to clean off. Right. So going to just tune up first of all. Not that I'm too bothered about strictly the tuning, but much better than the original tuners, I've got to say. So I'm going to just use that, leave that there like that, to have it mostly under correct tension. And I'm going to get my 0.3 nut slot, you know, yeah, feeler gauge. And then we're going to start with, as always, the G. This is a nice tusk nut, but it's a little too high. It's actually come down since I've lowered the action at the other end, which is good. So it's probably actually going to be fairly short order to get this right. Wow, yeah. The combination of that's good. The combination of having taken down the overall action and the massive amount of relief that was in this neck originally has brought the nut action quite a lot lower, which is great. It makes it much quicker to get this bit done. So really I'm sort of just widening it a little bit, making sure it now is the right height, but everything also plays beautifully. Not bad, actually. That's pretty close to the mark. Amazing how much difference the relief and the action makes. Oops. Because that was what we measured at the beginning of 0.8 of a millimetre, something like that. On the low E, it was hugely out, but not so bad now. Yeah, I can live with that. Okay, there's a screw or something. The bridge rattling. Tune-o-matic. God, how annoying. It's down there in the pickup. Yeah. Hang on, go back a step. I'm not sure what this material is. It really isn't cutting like tusk, or certainly not like bone. It's behaving quite a lot like plastic. But I guess it maybe that new bone stuff, hard to tell, but it just doesn't want to play ball with my files. So I'm finding it a little bit difficult to get down to the mark on this one, so clean it out now. There you go. that one, that one, that one. So once I've done this, it'll be a case of stretching out the strings to make sure that there's no slack left in them, and then check the intonation and re-intonate if necessary. Yeah, this is sort of new bony stuff. Has a definite feel to it. Well, you can cut it with one of these, but actually these types of files seem to really struggle with it, whereas they actually seem to work okay on bone. It's just a long, drawn out process, really. There we are, on the mark. Get there eventually. And finally. A little bit difficult to gauge the height on these low E's on both these old guitars because the frets are themselves quite significantly worn right on the edges, so it slopes off rather than falls off in the normal beveled edge. I'm going to call that done. Okay, so the next thing is to go in and give these a stretching, and at the point now of stretching these and going and tuning them back up each time to see how much slack has been taken out by the stretching, this is the point at which now really you want to listen. As you're doing this, when you've changed your strings, you now really want to be ready to listen very closely to how how the tuners work and whether there's any pinging or anything. So you'll kind of know when the tuners are running smoothly and the string goes smoothly through the slot. It'll just be a linear sort of process. You know that feeling where you tune and nothing happens? It won't be like that. It'll just smoothly tune up. Like that, with no pings and jumps. Nice. And nice again. Bit more stretching and we should be pretty much there. This is good. It's great to put these new tuners on and know that it's going to play now nicely for the next period of its life until it needs a refret. Sounds good. Feels good from here. Probably still a tad on the low side, if anything. Just over 2. Sorry, just over 1, I mean. 1.5. Actually, it's not too bad. And then what have we got? Very little in the relief. So bendy, these 8s. Here we are, tuning stable. Okay, that bit done. I'll put it on a strap now because we need to check the intonation to be complete. And it's better to do it in the playing position, mainly so you don't get shouted at by people. I've explained a number of times in the past why it's possible to do it flat, but people are attached to this thing about doing everything in the playing position with the kind of brain off, really. And I always say, as long as you know what's happening, you know that a neck tilting back under its own weight will be pulling the guitar slightly sharp. Now, of course, it is bending, and therefore you could say technically that bending means that the neck is, well, stretched. I don't know, but actually, if you know of what you speak, and you know that intonation is in fact distance. Nice. Nice, nice. Yeah, you'll know intonation is distance. So it doesn't really matter if you start out slightly sharp because your neck is pointing backwards or under gravity. What you're doing is you're using sound to measure the distance and alter the distance. This D is pretty much on, actually. I was going to say it might be showing up a tiny fraction flat on the 12th fret when we tune to the pinged harmonic. Barely. Just a tiny flash. So, if anything, those would come forward a tiny fraction, but they are so close to being on, it's not worth altering. Actually, that's hardly anything. So there we go. So here we have it. Clean tones, tone in the middle, effects off. interesting tone, that middle, both on. It's quite thick on that setting anyway. Of course, with a 2 pickup or a 3-way switch like this, if you do like the middle tone and you want to make a quick alteration to it, you just roll off the neck a little bit, which brings out the treble of the bridge more in relation, rather than trying to work any more tone out of the knob here, which you won't get. It's very controllable, that little bit of blend. It's very nice. So you can, with the tiniest touch in the middle position, you can just fill that sound out or strip it out of its base. Well, not all of it, because obviously you go to bridge for that, but most of it. It's a nice little place to control it. Between just all out cutting, little mixture of two, backed off on the neck a little bit, and then full on up to the neck. Of course, trying to back off, it's difficult to do any control over the breakup of the sound if you're working in the middle position, because you have to do both knobs at once, really. Take that off. back off the volume on these things, these little lamps, they seem to do weird things. It could be the fact that I've left this on overnight as well. Truthfully, you can never get too many stretches. Every stretch I take, every stretch you make is one stretch closer to playing stability, tuning stability when you're playing. So kind of worthwhile. I take it a bit easier on 8s because I don't want to break them. Right, I'm done for today. This is going to be ready for Chris tomorrow. All done. Gibson SG, vintage one from the 60s, I believe. Not sure what year. Nice thing, cleaned up a bit. New tuners to replace the grotty old ones. There's a kind of marks from, I don't know if this is where this has been sat in the past, up against yeah, neoprene hangers. I've kept it on a cloth when I've put it on the hangers, but there's a sort of mark there from way old. I haven't tried expressly to rub it off, but I've got most of the grey grime off this thing, which is now looking a hell of a lot nicer than it was, and it's got a much lower action all round, and a truss rod that's freed up and is working, so we were able to set a low action. But do I like it actually more than any other SG I've played by, let's say vintage or even Epiphone? Honestly, no, but I'm not a great player and I'm not a particularly great judge of tone either, so I'm not here to kind of make out that my judgment about this is worth jack shit anything, but this is, you know, it's got mojo and it's a Gibson, and you know, it holds its value, or you know, goes up in value. So it's a guitar and it's an asset, whereas you know, your vintage will probably feel almost as good, or if not as good to play, and you can get some great pickups in there, or your Epiphone. It's just, you know, it's a budget guitar, and you will only get a little bit for it when you sell it. But there you go. This is, you know, nice thing, very nice. But like I say, substantially so much different from anything else? Not really. But then there are those who would say, well, if I looked at two diamonds, I wouldn't tell the difference between the $1 trillion one and the $10,000 one, because they both look shiny and I don't know the ins and outs. I can only speak as I find, and like I said, not being a particular fan of a brand for brand's sake, you know, I don't think there's any magic about this. On the Melody Maker, the pickups were very nice, the Lollas, you know, and I would venture a guess that they're worth the extra money. This is just nice, you know, you'd enjoy playing this. Nothing wrong with it. Nice guitar, lovely TV yellow sort of colour, or faded cream, or whatever it's become over the years. But yeah, good stuff. Okay, see you again.